Hi, my name is SaraSai, and I want to warmly welcome you to Speak Easy with Vocalezy. Having spent a lifetime under the spotlight, center stage, singing opera, and performing and producing concerts all over the world, I had another life off stage where I shared the most precious journeys with individuals from all walks of life, facing some of life's greatest challenges. I became privy to some of the most tender, precious, authentic conversations in the inner sanctum of people's private lives. Everyone, from the movers and shakers I met, VIPs, celebrities, influential leaders, and ordinary unsung heroes and heroines of everyday life, all have a story to tell. So here, at Speak Easy, I want to give the microphone to you. I'm inviting anyone with a story that you would like to share to take the microphone, step into the spotlight, and share your story, your challenges, your life lessons, insights, and your vision for your life, and to sharing the gifts you were born to share. You'll find details on how to contact me at the end of this interview. So under the spotlight today, sharing the stage with me is... I'm delighted to introduce you to the most extraordinary man who I met by chance recently, and who, due to striking up a conversation as fellow authors, I came to know I'd found a hidden gem in discussing his academic career, his vast experience and expertise, and his entire compendium of publications of at least 30 plus books. Dr. Nat Khublall was born in Guyana. I met him in London, and that's where we are joining him in his home, where I invited him to have a speakeasy interview with Vocalezy. I'm delighted to share this extraordinary interview and insight into the life of this man with you. Let me give you a little introduction first before we join the interview. Dr. Nat Khublall is a barrister and a chartered surveyor who has acquired 3 degrees, including a UK higher doctorate and 3 professional qualifications. His primary expertise is in property law, property taxation, compulsory taxation, planning law, and valuation. He's had a varied career, over 55 years. He's now 86 years of age and still working on his books, his publications, still making book tours, giving talks, very much still engaging fully in his academic knowledge and wisdom and sharing that for generations to come. His career ranged from being a farmer, a clerk with the British Transport Commission, and he has also held temporary positions with the Greater London Council, known as the GLC in the past, as a States Officer for the New Towns Commission, UK, and the Deputy Chief Valuations Officer in his home country, Guyana, before entering into full-time university, initially teaching in 1974 and later attaining professorial status in 1988. He left academia in 1996 to practice as a barrister. In addition to full-time teaching, he was a member of a judicial tribunal for adjudication of disputes relating to condominiums and high-rise buildings in Singapore for 8 years. What's very interesting to me is that Dr. Nat Khublall left school as a very young boy. So his education has come from an inner desire to learn. I find that fascinating, that he developed a career and reached professorial status and a great academic recognition, and yet he left school early, like many of the world's high achievers, later returning to education for the continuation of his professional life. From time to time, Dr. Khublall was involved in part-time academic work at the University of Guyana, also Hong Kong University and Oxford Brookes University in the UK. He has written extensively on Indian culture, wisdom and achievements, ancient influences, foreign atrocities, invasions and plundering of resources, and his most recent publication to date is India, Discovery of the Truth. I believe that his publications hold great significance. He has also additionally written with interest on several other diverse topics, including exploring a plant-based diet and food as medicine. One of the books I'm eagerly looking forward to reading is a book entitled Transmigration of Souls. Having chatted with Dr. Khublall, and as an author myself, I share his love of discovering his topic through expanding his own research and understanding, and then sharing that in the books that he has written. Dr. Khublall is a member of the Honourable Society of Lincoln's Inn, London, a member of the Hong Kong Bar, and Fellow of the Institute of Chartered Surveyors, Activities and Societies. Dr. Khublall is author of 6 study manuals during his time at Hong Kong Polytechnic University. He also authored 9 textbooks in real property law, real estate taxation, development control, compulsory acquisition, strata titles, and Singapore property tax during his time in Singapore. He has authored additional book chapters in many UK compilation publications, and he is also author of 33 papers presented at international conferences globally and primarily in the USA, Spain, the Netherlands, Australia, Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Germany, and Oxford University, UK. And of course, he has been involved in penning numerous peer-reviewed publications and refereed journals. The 9 books listed here were published between 1984 and 1996 by highly reputable international publishers when Dr. Khublall was on the professorial staff at the University of Singapore. We just briefly introduced the topics: the law of compulsory purchase and compensation, law of real property and conveyancing in Singapore, Singapore property tax law and valuation, the law of real property and conveyancing, 2nd edition, development control and planning law, taxation relating to investments in real property, and compulsory land acquisitions, the 2nd edition, strata titles, and law of real property and conveyancing, law and tax, 3rd edition, published by Butterworth and Longman academic publishers. Most of these 9 books, when written, were of seminal importance in uncharted areas. 6 of them, together with 5 refereed papers, were examined by a number of UK professors quite recently for the purpose of awarding Dr. Khublall a higher doctorate degree by the University of Reading, UK. This is quite a rare honour. I'm here with Dr. Nat Khublall, and this is an interview I've been really looking forward to having. Dr. Nat, thank you for taking the time to be with me today. I have so many questions I want to ask you. I've already looked at your vast expanse of books. You have a library, you've written your own library on so many different diverse topics of great interest. So, people will learn about all of that background in your education. Now I want to talk about you, Dr. Nat, how you came to develop such a thirst for education, because I believe that you were born in Guyana, you lost your mom when you were very young, and so who was it that fostered the love of education in you?
I don't think anybody.
Really?
Yes.
So it was an innate thing from, I know you've written a book about reincarnation. You think it was a karmic thing, something from a previous lifetime? You came here to finish?
From time to time I go on the internet, and if I find something interesting, I would do some further research on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the reason how I ended up writing a book on reincarnation.
Ah, yeah. But you're somebody who has a thirst for knowledge and wisdom, and you're now 86 years of age, so you have decades-long experience and wisdom, which I feel is a great gift to the youth of today and to fostering a vision for a better world tomorrow that is much needed. I'm wondering, at this stage in your life, what do you feel the world needs to point to to course correct, to have us be living more consciously, to be remembering the true values of life, which we seem to have lost a little bit. What would your thoughts be on that?
I believe people tend to think more on how they can enjoy themselves.
Right.
That is not really for me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it is important to make yourself productive for society.
Mm-hmm.
You should try to do something so that people can benefit from it.
Yeah.
In my case, whatever I'm involved in, I would simply try to do my best so that it's done properly.
Yeah.
And I will leave no stone unturned in this regard.
Mm-hmm.
I feel I should always do something constructive. Whenever I finish something, I would try to think, what else can I do? And even if I'm doing something, sometimes people may ask me to do something else. And I could do it at the same time. I remember I was writing a book in Singapore, and then somebody asked me why I don't write a book on planning control. I said, yes, okay, I can do it. And I started to do some research on planning control. And I was involved in 2 books at the same time.
How did you manage that, along with all your professional obligations at the same time and having a family? How did you manage the work-life balance of that?
In those days, I was involved in looking after my 2 sons.
Yeah.
Taking them to school every day. Leaving my university to pick them up at 3:30.
Oh.
And
So you're a hands-on dad.
and then later on in the night, I would do some writing.
Yeah, when everybody's gone to sleep.
Yeah.
You mentioned that, yeah.
What I found in Singapore and Hong Kong is that I was having a lot of spare time after having gone into academia. Compared with what I was doing in Guyana. In Guyana, I was working day and night. When I went into academia, I found that I was only teaching about 6 to 8 hours a week.
Ah, okay.
So I had a lot of spare time.
Uh-huh.
So both in Hong Kong and Singapore, I had the spare time so that I can do whatever writing I want to do.
That's wonderful. That's a perfect balance, yeah. And I know that one of the values that you hold dear is really service. I know also that when writing these books, it was an inner inspiration that had you seek to go deeper into your own understanding and then share that with the world. And you have so many, many books to point to that we can't even begin to talk about them. We'd need an interview on each single book to look at the value within that book. I'm going to represent that as well as I can by pointing people to where they can find your works. But I'd like to ask you, what are the values you think maybe need to be optimized and pointed to in our society now to correct some of the ways we're going off track? Values you've lived by. I know you mentioned at one point having perseverance and service also, not wasting your time. Tell me a little bit more.
I always think that I should involve myself in some constructive way to produce something. When I look at society at large, I find that people are only trying to enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
Take, for instance, if somebody comes into a sum of money, the first thing they would think is to go on holiday.
Yeah.
Whereas they hardly leave anything for a rainy day.
Yeah, is that not also because times are tough for so many people nowadays that they're really having to work harder than ever before, just to be able to keep their heads above water? Is that maybe a symptom of an underlying problem where people are forced into recovery because of levels of stress that we have in our modern day society as never before, where time is the greatest luxury nowadays?
I believe most of the stress people suffer from, it's in their own making.
Yeah?
You have to think carefully how you live your life.
Mm.
You can avoid stress by how you think.
Mm.
If you're only thinking of problems, you could be having stress.
Mm.
What you should know is that everything you do has a little stress.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot do anything without a little stress. But it depends on the extent of the stress that you suffer from. You can avoid being too stressful by trying to solve in a good way how to get something done in the best manner.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe I'm wondering if you're talking yourself into your next book with that topic. Mind you, there's a lot of people focusing on mental health nowadays and stress management. It's a heavy shelf, that one, in the self-development department. Let me ask you, and this is a question which I find interesting because of my own work. If you had 7 days left in this world, what would be important for you to spend those 7 days on? What would matter to you?
Probably the best way to spend the 7 days is to list what I have accomplished over the years,
Mm-hmm.
and to make suggestions how people should look at them and think for themselves how they can do something to improve society.
Yeah. So that's external facing. But what about you finishing your journey in life? What would matter for you? Because you've written so many, many, many books now. And it's even hard for people to find books nowadays. And so many people don't have time to read books. And we mentioned the power of recording books by voice on Audible, for example, to reach a new market, because there are many people hungry for the wisdom that you have to impart, but they might not know where to find you or how to access that vast wealth of wisdom. So if you had to put it into a short paragraph, how would you say, what is important in this life? What has been the most important thing? What are you proudest you've achieved outside of academia? What really matters to you, looking back with a lens, 360 degrees, able to look back on your lifetime and all the experiences, the many countries you visited, the many people you have mentored and helped to educate? What is it that really matters from your perspective?
From my perspective, I believe the way how I was grown up in my young days, I experienced a lot of things which was very common among people of my age at the time. For example, we used to have a lot of cattle looking after in the village.
Yeah.
And in the dry season...
This is in Guyana?
Yes.
Okay.
In the dry season, we used to take the cattle further in the interior. And we used to build a hut.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to have hammocks, sleep in the hammocks.
Oh, lovely. Sounds carefree. Yeah.
And we used to milk the cows in the morning. And we used to ride bicycles to get home.
Sounds so simple and wonderful, yeah.
Yes, I learned a lot of things in those days about a very useful way how you can make life comfortable and beneficial so that you are not in want of anything.
And you're close to nature in that context as well.
Yes.
Because, when we live in cities nowadays, we barely look at the sky, barely notice the trees. People are more focused on their computers and their phones nowadays. It's like we're not living in the real world anymore. We're living in a virtual reality already. What's your take on that? Because you and I both know what life was like before computers and before mobile phones.
Yes.
What do you feel the impact? Obviously, it's beneficial in bringing the world into our living rooms, but what do you feel is the cost of that?
Yeah, people tend to spend too much time on all these gadgets they are acquiring, watching television, watching what is on their phone all the time. Even when they're walking, sometimes they bump into you. Yeah. Whenever I go out, I don't take out my phone. I simply walk, look around, enjoy nature. Whereas people, they're just watching their phone like that.
They're not actually present in the world.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually, the consciousness has been harnessed in a way that they're not present to life.
Another thing is, sometimes I wonder what they're looking at.
Yeah, I think people go into a trance mode with some of these things. Like even with television, where people start looking, but then they're pulled inside the television in some way, where there's nobody deciding to watch anymore. I think mobile phones, some of these high-tech companies know how to seduce us into keeping our focus within their marketing, their products, whether that be educational products or whatever, or entertainment products. Games are a big thing for many people now, that hours and hours and hours of their time that they'll never get back is lost in games, playing games. But is it not a release for the pressures and the problems of modern day living? Like, when you talk about growing up in Guyana and that carefree way of living close to nature on the farm, haven't we lost some of that connection in our modern day living that has unplugged us from our own true nature as well at the same time? Tell me about that.
Yeah, that is true to a certain extent. Since I left Guyana in 1961, I haven't been doing any farming, because before I left, I was involved in farming.
Okay.
Since then, no farming. I was mainly concerned about attaining some qualification and to return to Guyana. Eventually, I returned 6.5 years later with a degree in estate management and the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors qualification. And I was involved in Guyana as a valuer for 2 years. Then I saw an advertisement about an MSc degree being promulgated at the College of Estate Management. I decided to inquire about it, and I was told if you can support yourself, you would be admitted to the course. I wrote to tell them I can support myself. I was admitted. I came back. I resigned from my job. I had a contract for 4 years. I resigned after 2 years. And I completed the MSc. And then I worked as an estates officer for 3 months. And I returned. Actually, I was asked to return. I returned. I asked for better terms and conditions, and to provide quarters as well, living quarters. Everything was allowed to my satisfaction. But little was I anticipate that they would not have enough people working in the department. I had to do from the lowest to the highest job. And eventually I did whatever I was required to do. And more than that I was required to do.
That's how you become indispensable also.
For example, every year, when there was an annual report, the head of department would mention that I was performing much more than all the other people would do.
Yeah.
And I would get a reply from the permanent secretary that I excel a great deal in my job.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me at all.
And then one day I was in the shopping area. I met an old friend. He asked me if I could teach land surveying.
Mm-hmm.
I said yes, even though I wasn't fully qualified for it.
Yeah.
I'm a chartered surveyor,
Yeah.
but he didn't realize that I'm not a land surveyor.
Mm-hmm.
So I took on the challenge, teaching land surveying at the university to engineering students when their level was higher than mine.
The power of possibility. I'm so thrilled to have an opportunity to discuss your life, your work, your legacy, and the wonderful books you have written, which I don't know. You have a library behind you, years and years, decades of research, education, and extreme contribution to humanity in the works you have created. I'd love you to tell me, where do I start with all these books?
You should start with those 6 books I wrote in Hong Kong. The first one was Landlord and Tenant Law, but I don't have a copy of that at the moment. The second one was Law of Real Property.
Law re property?
Well, I don't seem to have that as well.
Many of your books are available via private publishers, but also on Amazon in the form of print books, print on demand, and also PDFs, downloadable ebooks.
20 books are available on Amazon.
Yeah, I've had a look at them, and the titles are mind-boggling, actually, because none of these are simple tomes. They're deeply intellectual treatises on subjects of which you are an expert, and they're all of great substance, several hundred pages each. You must have spent your life writing.
Not quite. I was working in Guyana as the Deputy Chief Valuation Officer, and there I was working day and night because they didn't have supporting staff.
Right.
I valued the whole of the capital city, and at the same time I was a part-time lecturer at the university. So I used to go back to the office in the evening to do the valuation.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I used to go and do a lunchtime lecture.
In between.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and where was the room for you and your life? It sounds like you were completely married to your work.
Well, they didn't have supporting staff. We were only 3 professional persons: the chief, and me, the deputy chief, and there's 1 valuer.
Mm.
And every property passed through my hands for the capital city of Georgetown.
Every property that was being valuated?
Yes, every property passed through.
Wow.
I did the valuation, the actual valuation.
Yeah.
I did it. And I inspected 1/3 of them.
Personally?
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
So you have so many memories because you've so many different professional capacities. It's like a compendium of knowledge. I don't even know where to start in discussing with you, because you have expertise in such diverse areas of interest. I think we're going to have to sit down and start from scratch. I want to talk with you about how all of this knowledge and wisdom came to you, what it was that inspired you in your life, because I know, for example, that You were not brought up in an intellectual or professional household, and you left school age 11 and went out in the big bad world without all of the education that is the hallmark of your life and testament to your great commitment to education and to deepening your wisdom and your knowledge in your life. And now, at 86 years of age, you're still writing, you're still publishing. Like me as an author, you're on Kindle Direct Publishing, uploading books.
Yes.
You know, so your mind is still as bright as ever and as committed to learning. And I think that's such a wonderful quality to have. It's probably sustained you through all the years and all the milestones of life, the running thread through the tapestry of your life. I want to listen to you now, not do the talking. So maybe we'll move over and take a seat and discuss further. I'm going to document every single book that you've written. And I know that some of them are not even published in a widespread manner, that there's some work to be done to ensure the totality of your legacy is recognized. But I know that we've only just met, and I need to listen and learn about your commitment to your work and about the purpose that has been running your life for all these years. So let's start at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, this is a journal published via the University of Ulster. It is on property tax assessment and administration. I have one paper in it. In those days, I used to be a sub-editor of this journal. I'm no longer a sub-editor after I left academia. This is a 2-volume publication based on compensation for expropriation relating to a conference at Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the sub-editors of papers for the Asian section, and I have a paper as well in this volume, as you can see here. I presented my paper, and I also was a chairman of one of the sessions at the Oxford Conference. This is the second edition of my autobiography.
An unusual life story. Wow, you certainly have had that.
In this second edition, I have added 2 more chapters, because the first edition ended with the acquisition of my higher doctorate. And since then, I practiced law for about 15 years. And in one chapter, I included 4 interesting cases. And in the final chapter, I included 15 books I uploaded on Amazon.
Wow. I can't believe you were there uploading all your own books. I mean, the amount of knowledge you have created in all of these books is incredible. And you've been doing it all on your own, really.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, practicing law on other matters.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You must be so proud of everything you've achieved. Are you? Are you proud?
Well, okay. This is another 15 books. These 15 books are uploaded on Amazon.
Aha, yeah. So something is telling me that your enjoyment is also for yourself in the work that goes behind researching all of these topics as well as writing the content. It's actually for yourself as well as for your audience, as for your readers. Am I right?
Yeah, that's quite true.
Yeah, it's a labor of love, really, and self-education.
I don't like doing nothing.
Yeah.
Most people, when they have nothing to do, they simply watch the television.
That's so right, yeah.
I feel I'm better placed to make life more interesting by writing a book or so.
Yeah. Wow, you've kept your life spinning for decades in that way, delving into so many different areas of expertise.
Yeah.
Honestly, the mind boggles. I'm going to go back to the books for a second. Tell me, you were saying that how this book came into being, this particular volume.
This book I wrote during the night when my family members were sleeping.
Right.
And once it was published, I was called for an interview by the Vice Chancellor for promotion to professorial status. So the Vice Chancellor asked me, you mentioned in your application that you've written another book. When will it be published? And the dean of my faculty, he had a copy of it. He said, here it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they were waiting for it hot off the press.
Yes.
That's fabulous.
So
They obviously knew who you were by that stage.
Where in Singapore, anybody who had one book published, they would be promoted.
Yeah.
I had to have 3 books published before I got promotion.
Why was that?
It depends who you know.
Such is the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, what I see with all these books as well is it's like a hidden treasure, a buried treasure that I'm sure many people would love to know, and that it's a travesty not to have people discover them. It's so hard, as I know as an author, to have people find your books, because you could even write the Bible, but unless you market it, nobody will read it.
Yeah.
How do you face that challenge?
I'm not involved in any sort of promotion of my books. When I was in Singapore, all my books there were published by highly reputable publishers, Longman, Butterworth, and Financial Times.
Yeah.
Before the books were published, they would do a lot of marketing work. They would send brochures to all the people that they think would be interested in the book, including libraries and so on, so that by the time the book is published, people would order the books, so they would sell the books directly to those who are interested, instead of selling it through bookshops when they had to give a big discount to the bookstores.
Yeah, and of course everything has changed now through online bookstores like Amazon, and even the main publishers have their online sourcing.
Since I came back to England and I started to write books, I simply upload them on Amazon without trying to have other publishers publishing my books, because it would be time consuming.
Yeah, I know that as an author as well. You're either writing the books or you're doing all of the marketing that's required. You know, another possibility I see as well, your books would be very valuable if recorded by voice for Audible. A lot of people don't have time to read books anymore nowadays, but a lot of people are looking for Audible books with authority. So, you know, that's something I've done with a couple of my books as well. I've actually gone into a recording studio to record them.
Yes.
And then you can be marketing in a different way, but it's easier for people to access them while they're on the move. I'm thinking that this is a missing piece of the puzzle for you as well, because I know you had great enjoyment out of writing your books, but I also think there can be a massive contribution to so many people around the world in accessing and becoming aware of your books and the information in all of them. That's like a missing piece of that jigsaw puzzle, I think could be worth exploring.
Do you need to read all the books throughout, cover to cover, when you record them?
Yeah, but you don't have to do it yourself. You can have someone do that for you. I think that your work needs to be championed and celebrated by a wider audience. To me, there are so many books and there's so much information, but there's so much wisdom in the years and you have such a legacy in your intellectual property that it's a shame for it to be undiscovered or not discovered in the capacity that it can be. Because you have a lot of experience and expertise that is probably unparalleled. I don't know, we got to talk about that one.
Shashi Tharoor, doctor, he was the Deputy Secretary General of the UN. I believe after he wasn't promoted, he decided to leave. He went back to India and he became an MP. Some years ago, he was invited to Oxford Union to take part in a debate. This debate about whether the UK should pay reparation to India. He was on the side of paying reparation. There were some very powerful people on the other side. When, at the end of it, when the result came out, his side won. And before he ended his talk, he suggested whatever reparation should be paid, it should be £1 per year.
£1 per year?
Yes.
And just to reframe this for people watching this video, reparation for what exactly? For
the wrongdoings of the British Empire in India.
During
the 200 years they were rulers of India.
Colonial rule?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. How can that be measured?
Actually, it is difficult to measure, but some people have done it, and actually I have quoted the amount in one of my books.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
You've written several books on India.
Yeah.
Its past and its future and its...
Yeah. Actually, I believe it is in this book here.
Ancient Influences and Superiority.
Yes.
Yes, I can imagine that's a divisive topic.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's in this book. It's about 45 trillion. That was the estimate.
45 trillion?
Pounds.
Wow. That might come in handy.
Yeah. Yes, but Shashi Tharoor came up with the idea. He said it is impossible for any reparation to be paid.
Yeah.
So he suggested £1 a year.
£1 a year?
Yes.
Which is a very nominal sum.
Yes.
And really, can these debts be paid with money only?
Yeah.
This is the thing.
Actually, last week, I went to the local library and I saw his book, Inglorious Empire. Last week, Monday.
Oh, okay.
And I borrowed it. And I read it within a few days. I came across most of the things that he wrote about, I've got in my books. Yes. Because whatever he discussed in the debate at Oxford Union, I've got everything in my books. Actually.
Maybe he perused your volumes.
No, I don't think so, because he's very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the statement he made? There's quite a famous statement he made about that. What was it?
Well, he spoke about famines. Do you know, I've calculated 45 million people died of famines, due to famines in India during the British Raj.
Wow.
But after independence, there was hardly any significant famine. The reason why is because the independent government of India decided to plan properly for famines. So I suspect the reason why the British allowed so many famines to cause a devastation of very large proportion of people was because they didn't want the population to grow so fast. The East India Company had a college in somewhere in North London during the days they were operating in India. And they had as their principal of this college Thomas Malthus. I don't know if you've ever heard of Thomas Malthus. No. He was a reverend and an economist. And he always used to discuss overpopulation with his sons. And he used to say the only way to reduce population, overpopulation, is by war and famines.
And that's going to do it.
And probably, as principal, he probably focused highly on how to reduce Indian population by famines. I'm not sure about it. This is a
supposition, of course, and also a bit incendiary. In this era now, hundreds of years later, I wonder, I can't help but wonder, current Indian leadership, how they feel about this debt.
I don't think they have any strong feeling about being repaid.
But they must be aware of the historical cost.
Yes, they're aware of the historical cost, but their policy is to ensure that they grow the country.
Yeah.
Now, since 1947, the country didn't grow much for about 3 decades. And the reason why is because they were afraid that if they opened the economy, they would have other intruders coming in and impose their system, or history could repeat itself.
Right.
As the invaders, the Muslim invaders, and the British East India Company, which took almost complete control of India. So the Indian independent government under Jawaharlal Nehru, he decided to introduce a licensing system that every industry would be under some sort of license. If you want to start up a big company, you needed a license for that. And what they introduced they introduced 5-year plans.
Right.
So every 5 years they would have a new socialist plan. And these 5-year plans tended to restrict the growth of the economy, whereas Korea and Singapore and other Southeast Asian countries were growing by about 8 to 10%. India was growing at 3%.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
They claim that this is the Hindu rate of growth, 3%. And it was not until around 1990 that some economic reforms were carried out. And then the country started to grow.
Yeah.
6%, 7%, and so on.
Yeah.
8%. And before the British went to India, the Indian economy was about 25 to 33% of the world. 25 to 33% of the world economy. Now, information on this has been provided by Angus Maddison, a British learned, I believe, professor.
Yeah.
He died some years ago, but it's well-known information.
Yeah.
on the internet. And when the British left India, the economy was reduced from probably 25 or 33% GDP to 3%.
Wow.
From 25 to 33%
That's catastrophic.
to 3%.
Wow.
Yes. And the British introduced their own education system, and that prevented the Indian education system to educate the people. So the British, they educated only about 10% or less, so that they can get people who can speak English to do the
jobs.
the low
required.
jobs.
Yes.
The low jobs.
Yeah.
And
mostly men at the time also,
yes.
right?
And now the economy is growing in India, and whereas it was at the bottom, it has been improved quite a lot. So it is now the third highest economy in the world, based on, I believe, purchasing power.
Purchasing power.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
You have two ways of measuring GDP. One is by purchasing power, and one is the normal way. So the purchasing power would give it a more realistic rate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So presently, I believe you have at the top you have United States, then China, then Japan and Germany, I believe.
Yeah.
But I believe using purchasing power, India would be the third.
India, right?
Or
Nowadays.
maybe, if not now, probably in a few years' time. It will be the third economy in the world.
Wow, moving in the right direction.
Yes.
But reclaiming its losses, you could say as well, to some extent.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a MSc dissertation in 1970.
Okay.
MSc.
MSc.
Yeah.
Masters. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think I've learned anything much.
You don't think you've learned anything?
No.
Tell me why.
Maybe I probably have learned how to do some research. But apart from that, whatever they taught, I knew a lot already.
Yeah, so it's more like remembering what you already know?
Because when I was doing my undergraduate degree, I left no stone unturned. I studied everything. Whereas other students, they would just study the pass exam. I would buy all the books. Like I bought about a dozen books on economics, on urban economics.
Yeah.
And I bought all the books, really. So I had quite a lot of knowledge. So when I was teaching in Hong Kong, I had a lot of English colleagues there. They had the same BSc like me, but yet they didn't know anything much. They would ask me for information.
Yeah. I think you're talking about the difference between a professional player and a virtuoso player. You know, you really made them your own.
Yes.
I think education is your food. Yeah. It's your daily diet.
I've got 5 of these books on health and nutrition.
So I'm here with Dr. Nat, and I'm telling you, this is a preemptive investigation of all his books, because he's the most prolific writer I think I've ever met. So here we're going to look at a degree that he has from the University of Reading. I hereby certify that Nat Khublall has been duly admitted to the degree of Doctor of Science of this university. And there are many more. The Council of Legal Education.
SaraSai.
The following books are all available on Amazon to download as ebooks or to purchase for print on demand. You will see I've provided a QR code. If you use your camera to capture the QR code, it will lead you to an Amazon page where you'll find several of Dr. Khublall's books. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Khublall for saying yes to me and for allowing me to dive into this vast, expansive knowledge. He has many, many stories to tell. I think we've barely scratched the surface discovering these publications, and each book deserves to have a discussion in itself. I hope that Dr. Khublall and I will have time to discover some of these books and to interview him with a greater depth of understanding on the subject topic. I would really like to thank him for allowing us to get to know him a little better and to celebrate him, because I think he's lived a life of extraordinary significance and achievement and great accomplishment, coming from a farm in Guyana, leaving school early, and loving learning so deeply that he is leaving a legacy of wonderful wisdom and education on many diverse topics for future generations to benefit. It's been an honor to speak with him. I thank Dr. Khublall for saying yes to Speaking Easy with Vocalezy, and I look forward to speaking with him again. Thank you for sharing this extraordinary interview with me. I look forward to seeing you again. If you would like to tell your story on Speak Easy with Vocalezy, then look for the link in the comments below. Thank you.